Hi, Doug. How are you keeping? Good to speak to you, man. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, absolutely, man. No problem. I'm at home just like everybody else.
So, obviously, you and the rest of the Dead Daisies are due to release Holy Ground later this year. How would you say the album compares to your previous studio album, Burn It Down?
It's different. It's really. I mean, always when you're making a record, you want it to be the best one you ever did, and I think that people will be really happy with the sound and the songs.
Mm.
It's different than Burn It Down. Burn It Down was featuring John Corabi on vocals. Now we've got Glenn Hughes on vocals, so that's going to be a major change. But it's still got the flavor of the Daisies from the rhythm section with me and David Lowy and Dean Castronovo.
Yeah.
And but we got a fresh sound that we're really excited about. So we're really kind of pumped on pushing that, getting people to hear the new sound.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, as you mentioned, obviously, this is the first album since John Corabi and Mark Mendoza left the camp, and Glenn Hughes has come stepping up to plate, which I've got to say, as a bass player, Glenn's always been a huge influence on me.
Man,
And so when he was announced as he was coming to the
he's
fore, it was really, really exciting.
yeah. Of course, we're sad to see John go, and Marco ended up
Yeah.
going. Marco is always busy doing his solo stuff anyway, so it was actually for him kind of a relief that he could focus on his own solo stuff for a while, and I think that was really for him a positive thing. And I think John just decided, he wanted to kind of take it easy, and he wanted to focus on his acoustic live shows, which are really great.
Yeah,
And
I saw him down in London on, can't remember if it was last year or year before now, but that was a great show from John.
yeah, he's my bro. He's just so he's so entertaining. He's like the ultimate MC because he's fun. He tells stories, he tells jokes, he's funny, and he's also a great singer, songwriter, guitar player. So it was cool. But I gotta say, when they said, look, we've been speaking with Glenn Hughes, what do you think? I was like, oh my God, that would be insane. That would be amazing. We weren't really sure what we were going to do exactly, but they started speaking to Glenn, and of course I knew Glenn and had worked with him a couple years prior. Now
Yeah,
I
I've
guess it's
seen
about
you
5 years.
with Glenn in 2015 in
Yeah.
Norwich Day.
So I just thought, man, this could be amazing, and blending his sound with the sound that we have, it really shines on the record. And Glenn, I got to say, he's such a superstar. I mean, everybody knows him as a legend, but behind the scenes, he's just brilliant. He was one of those crazy people that not just amazingly talented at one thing, but at two things. It's like, so it makes him, he's like a freak, But yeah, the new record is great. We're really excited about it. Can't wait for everyone to hear it more.
Definitely. So you've obviously already released Righteous Days and the new single Unspoken. Do you feel that they're a true representation of the album as a whole, or is there more sort of light and shade on the record?
It's definitely that's just a sprinkle of the seasoning on the record. There's a lot to be discovered, and in fact, Unspoken was not meant to be the first single initially, but we felt we felt that actually management started to think about songs during this CV19 period, and since our record got pushed back, we wanted to release something, maybe do a couple songs or something over the period of the summer, and that song just resonated with everybody, and lyrically it really fit for the times. And it's strange because it really it's like you have to at this point start over, start fresh, and not be afraid to walk away. And there are certain things like in Glenn's lyrics that really tie into that, starting over and starting fresh, and rejuvenating. And it's the other thing that I want to say is Glenn's lyrics on this album are very are very pertinent to this time, not on purpose, obviously, because nobody knew about it when we were writing the record. We didn't know this was going to happen, but it's just like interesting because they really tie in. And I want to say that Glenn, when he writes something, anyways, he writes from his heart. He's not one of these guys that makes up lyrics that he thinks sounds cool. It's really stuff that he believes.
I think anyone who knows Glenn throughout his career would easily say he's a soulful writer, and I've always said he's probably the man with the most soulful voice in rock. I'd have thought myself, just my opinion, obviously, but
yeah, but in his lyrics, he is the messenger. He really is. It's amazing. I obviously work with other singers, other lyricists, and everyone's got their own way to do it. But Glenn is very, very passionate and precious about his lyrics. That they have to make sense to him. You would never say to Glenn, "Hey, can we change this one thing to this?" Because it's like he's already been down that road. He thought about it, and done it. He's done it that way for a reason. So anyway, can't wait for people to hear it. And no, those two songs are just a small taste. Back to the point, we had a plan of which songs we were going to start with single wise, and then the follow-up second single was meant more for radio. And we're still going to stay with that plan once we get to that point. But right now we're kind of just giving people a little taste here and there.
Cool. So how did the remix version, the sort of dance remix version of Unspoken come about?
It was something that these German, I don't even know what you call them, the dance, not hip hop guys, they're like DJs. Yeah. These German DJs reached out to management and said, "Hey, we'd like to have a go with this, and we really love the song and love the lyrics, and want to have a thing in there." I'm not familiar with that kind of music, but these guys are apparently pretty well known, or maybe very, very famous in certain parts of the dance world, and they did it. And it's for Glenn, it's a little difficult because he has a vision of how he wanted his lyrics to be, and we were happy. We were happy with the way that the song turned out on the record. This is a whole different enchilada, a whole different shepherd's pie, you would say. But it's cool. I really like it, and I really, it's like when you watch the video that goes with it, it's got a really cool vibe to it.
I must admit, as a rule, I'm a rock guy, so dance doesn't normally come into my remit. Some stuff does, stuff like Prodigy or something like that, but as a rule, I'm not. But there's something about Glenn's grooves that lend really well, I thought, to the more dancey trance side of it. I thought they've done a really good job with it and making it their own, but with not detracting too much from the soul of the song, I thought.
I agree. And I think I got a tip of the hat to the management, because they're not afraid to try things like that. And some people, if they asked me and Glenn, "Hey, you guys want to do this?" we probably would have said, "No, that's okay, thank you."
Yeah.
But I'm very happy that they did it. And the only problem is that I can't dance very well, so
we're in the same boat there, mate. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
This album also sees the return of Ben Gross, who obviously co-produced the Revolution album with the band. How comes Ben ended up coming back to the fold in the producing role then? Was it something that was on the cards for a while and schedules lining up, or
no?
It's to the songs more?
It's an interesting story. Of course, I had heard of Ben because of he mixed the Revolution record. Or he mixed part of it, at least I know, and he might have recorded part of it in Cuba. I don't know all the details, but they had worked together before I got in the band, and then when I got in the band, we did work with Marty Fredrickson. But they decided they wanted to kind of go for a little different sound. Management wanted to get a little different sound out of us, and I think it was keen for Glenn too to do something new. So we were talking to some people. We were talking with Mike Frazier, helped us a little bit. he helped us a little bit, and some other friends talked to. But it was just weird that David Lowy was, I think he was in a restaurant or walking on the street in New York, and Ben Gross walked by him.
Oh, right.
And Dis was like, "Hey, David, how you doing? Hey, Ben, good to see you, mate." And then it was like, "Well, what are you doing?" We're working on a record right now, but we don't really know. Are you available? Yeah, man. And that's how it happened. It was so by
Just a
chance.
natural process as that.
Yeah, it was completely by chance. And so management talked to Ben, scheduled it out, and then we proceeded with going to France to really do pre-production and writing, and then we recorded the majority of the basic tracks there as well. But yeah, it was just by chance that we got Ben, and he did such an amazing job, man. It's just he really is like a professor in the studio. I can tell you, like when we were tracking the songs,
Yeah.
we did them together. We played them together. Glenn sang, rough lyrics, or if he had lyrics done, he sang them. But he would always sing during the tracking, and most of his bass is actually with the same take that we use the drums. So it was like the drums and bass really locked in.
Oh, wow, cool.
Yeah, and then we there was some stuff from guitars that we kept, and some stuff we just started from scratch and redid with a different tone. But Ben, then after that, so we knew the songs, we played them live and did them in like old school. But then when we got back to LA, Glenn wanted to do some overdubs on guitars, and we had to finish some vocals. Ben wanted to do that, and Glenn and I would go in the studio, and Ben would say, "Doug, I need you for like 2 hours," and I'd come in, and he'd have a list. He'd be like, "I need you to redo the chorus guitar on this song, and then I want you to put a solo on this song, and I want you to do a clean guitar on this song, an acoustic on this song, just in this one section." So after the initial tracking, I never actually heard the whole song, any song in whole. It would be like he would go right to the chorus, and I'd record a new chorus guitar part, and he'd go, "Yeah, that's it. Okay, cool." And then we'd go to the next thing and check off his list. And so I didn't really have a clear picture of what the record was going to sound like until he revealed the mixes, and it's awesome.
So what was that like then, sort of going from that bass idea that you had when you were in France, and then editing those bits, and then here, that must have been quite a reveal when you heard the whole thing together.
Well, it was just, hearing it mixed was really cool, because Ben is an old school producer, and he, even though nowadays you can record in Pro Tools, for example, and you can kind of be working on your mix at the same time. Every time you open the session, it can come back exactly how you left it. But the way that Ben likes to do it, he wants it all to come up on his old school SSL or Neve mixing desk console. And so the mix changes every time. It's never the same. It's never like nothing. He's never really focused on mixing. So when you hear the mix for real, it's like, wow, this sounds cool, and that's how it was. Nobody got to hear anything until he was done.
So where did you actually record the album? Because the videos that I saw that you guys were putting up on the social media pages looked like a fantastic place to record.
That was a studio. It was a chateau in south of France, a big old building. Probably could have 50 people stay there. There were so many rooms in every place in that, and they have an amazing studio there called La Fabrique. And so we set up in the actually Rammstein had been in there recently.
Oh, okay.
And so we set up in the room where they said that the drums sounded really great, and then we had these long wires that went back to the control room for Ben, and then we were on video. We'd talk to him on video from the other. It was like a separate building, it was like a giant, like a barn almost. And so we'd go in there, the four of us, and play, and then he'd say, "Okay, come in, let's have a listen," and then we'd discuss changes, and we'd go back out and recut it, and that's pretty much how it went. And it was really perfect because we lived there, all of us at the same time. We'd basically have breakfast, lunch, and dinner together in the chateau. And there was a convenience store in a little town about a 30-minute walk away. But the first trip there, I never actually left the chateau. I just stayed there all the time. But it was great. So we'd wake up, go down and have breakfast, and go right in the studio.
That must be really good, sort of like have that, that sort of old school vibe of almost like living in the same house type thing together. Of,
Absolutely.
Things everyone goes through in bands.
Yeah, man. It really is very conducive to staying focused and productive and working fast. I mean, we accomplished. We probably had, I think, 20 something ideas finished after the first. I guess it was a 10-day trip to write. We had all brought in ideas together, and then we took those ideas and formulated 20 songs out of them.
Oh wow!
And then we picked the best. Band and management picked the best, their favorite ones. So that's how it went.
So with the writing process, obviously with Glenn coming into the fold, that must have changed somewhat from obviously John Corabi and Marco Mendoza days into this new period with Glenn. Is it a case of everyone still adding their bits to the soup, or does someone come in with more of a solid idea? How do you guys write these days?
We broke that ice back in August last year when we did our original first 4 songs together. Well, we cut 4 and then we released the first version of Righteous Days.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, we recut that, and we just wanted it to sound like the rest of the record, so we recut it. But cool. So we had cut a couple songs that Glenn had brought in, and then everybody puts their touches on it. And then there was this Righteous Days was the first song that Glenn and I wrote together with the guys. So it was a team effort. And Glenn, of course, came up with all melodies and lyrics and stuff. So then when we get to the next process of going to France and starting to formulate, we had those 4 songs to start with. And then, all 4 of those songs we made some changes to, and they're all on the album. And then Unspoken was one that we cut in August of last year, and so that we recut it for the album, made some small changes, and so you've heard that. But then a lot of the other stuff, Glenn had probably 5 or 6 ideas that were pretty much ready to go, and then we would just daisify them. He would have a starting point, and then we would kind of adapt to that and adapt to our parts and our sound to that. And then I had probably 4 or 5 ideas that David Lowy and I had started, and we did the same with that. Glenn took it away and put his stamp on that stuff. And then there were some songs that we kind of fabricated together. There was one in particular that the management really, it was a demo that I had, and we wanted to change it, except keep the main riff of it. Okay. And we wanted to write it together, and Glenn and I and David and Dean sat there for what seemed like a really long time, trying different versions, trying different ways, and it just wasn't coming together. It just was like, so I had the duty to go tell the management, like, look, this song is just not going to happen. It's just not. We tried it every way that possible, and management said, quit screwing around. You guys get out there and finish that tune, And I had told Glenn, I go, look, let's just knock it on the head with this thing, man. It's just like, if you got to work that hard, it's not going to happen. And he's like, you're right. Go tell him. so I went, and he goes, no, you guys get back out there and finish the damn song. So I go, Glenn, look, we got to finish this thing. And I go, look, I don't want to. I'm done. I'm tired. I don't want to hear this song anymore. I'm sick of it, And he goes, me too. I go, well, I don't know. Maybe we try this. And I just hit something, and Glenn goes, ooh. And then he goes, what about this? And I go, that's pretty cool. And we go, quick, let's get down there. Let's go just knock it out and see what happens. And it turned into, I think it's David Lowey's favorite song. I'm not allowed to tell you the title, but we did finish it, and it did get cut. And you're going to probably hear that song sometime this summer.
Oh, I'll keep my ears out for that one then.
Yeah.
So as you say, you've across your career, Doug, you've worked with, of course, some great singers, of course, Glenn, David Coverdale, John Corabi, Ronnie James Dio. Are there any other artists that you've not collaborated in your career that you'd like to at some point, whether it be a one-off thing or just to have a jam with? There's
always people, man, that you'd love to work with, and you hear something and you go, wow, that's really cool. I mean, I love that band. This is going to sound weird, but I love that band Coldplay. Chris is so talented. I'd love to, see how his process of writing is and see what that would be like. There's a lot of great younger artists that are coming up that are.
Yeah, there's a lot of good young bands coming through the fold at the moment.
Yeah, and they're coming up with some amazing stuff in an old school way that somebody like myself, you get after so many years of doing it different ways, sometimes you need to go back to the square one and see the energy that some kids put into it is the right way. But to answer your question, there's always somebody, and there's always something to learn. And I love the process of learning something naturally versus going to school and learning how to write a song. You can do that, but I prefer that being able to work with guys like Ronnie and David and Glenn, John, Dean, different singers that all have their own way of doing it. And I learned so much, from, especially my time with David was so long, and we wrote so many songs together. And I learned, he taught me a hell of a lot about hooks and how melodies work, and it was really a really amazing period, creating with him.
I can imagine, because you were with Whitesnake for a long time, so that must have been a great period of your life.
Yeah, it was, and now listening to it back, there's certain things I go, well, I wished we would have done this, or I wished we would have done that. But then there's other stuff that's like, wow, that's really cool. I'm so happy to have, all of it I'm proud of with David. Out of all the songs that were published, we published 30 songs together. And that's when you think back about it, that's a lot of music. There's a few that are really like, super favorites of mine. Two of them, which were always, it was the last song that I came in with for David. One was Till the End of Time on a Good to Be Bad.
Good to Be Bad, yeah.
I love that track, and I wanted people to hear David's acoustic side again, and David loved Hendrix, and so my inspiration was Hear My Train a Comin' by Hendrix. But then of course it turned into something else. David and I were watching a lot of westerns at the time, so it had a little bit of a dusty, dry western vibe to it. But and then Forevermore was the last song that we wrote together, the last song that we recorded for the album Forevermore. Yeah. And I love that as well. But I learned from Glenn a lot. I learned from Ronnie. Ronnie was different. Ronnie was very extremely, he wanted a specific sound, and that was it. He really didn't want to experiment. He wanted the perfect Dio sound. Yeah. And that's all he really was looking for. Whereas David wanted to really experiment. He really didn't want to get locked into any one thing. And Glenn's kind of a whole different thing. Glenn's, just a very natural, spiritual kind of songwriter. He's got to feel it. Even, if I have something that I really believe in, and I want him to try it, he's got to feel it first. I basically got to leave it there for him to check out and listen to and kind of live with. And if it sticks, then good. If he's not feeling it, then we're not going to make a song out of it.
I was fortunate enough to meet Glenn. I was, as well as doing the radio show, part of the production team for Stone Dead Festival, and Glenn headlined that last summer. So while I was working backstage and looking after everyone who's on the bill, I got to meet Glenn, and he's a fantastic guy, and it was an
Yeah.
honour to meet him. But you can just tell with whatever he's doing, that's what he's got to do in that moment. Whether it be like when he did obviously his Resonate album, his last studio album, which was fantastic. I had that on earlier today. The Deep Purple shows that he was doing, and that's the set he did for Stone Dead, and you could tell he just in that moment that's what he wanted to do, and it
You
whatever
said it.
Glenn seems
You
to do
said it.
always has 110% of his soul in it, no matter what
You
project it is. That's what he's got to do at that time.
you said it perfect. You said that's what he has to do
Yeah,
at that time. That's what he has to do. He can't. You can't ask him to do something that he's not feeling. He could try it, but he would probably just say no. I can't do it. I just can't do that. And you got to respect that. And you're
definitely.
right. When he's on stage doing his thing, it's on. It's not autopilot. It's like it's spiritual guidance for him. It's just
Definitely.
doing.
My job at the during the as the build up the festival, I just organise, look after the website and do the IT side of things. But on the day itself, I'm looking after the artists and running the backstage area as such. And the
Yeah,
only time I get to stop on the festival is obviously when the headline is on, because when the headline is on, there's no one else to look after. The headline band's on, everyone else is sort of around, and that was the one time I got to stop. And obviously, like I said earlier, Glenn's a massive influence on my bass playing, so to be stood just off of stage, just watching him play and just watching the people react to him was a real honour to be in that position. I'm used to being out in the crowd, but to see
yeah, and
that from the other side of the stage was quite something.
it's an honor to get a chance to hear magic like that, and for me to be a part of it is really amazing. Because I remember when I was working with Glenn back in 2015 doing some shows. It was just a trio, and I remember being in sound checks, and Glenn would just kind of walk up to the bass and put it on, and his drummer Pontus
Yeah,
would
Pontus,
be.
yeah, because I saw that tour in Norwich. It was a great, great show.
Yeah. And so Pontus would be playing a little something, and then Glenn would just kind of walk up to the bass, put it on, and just all of a sudden it would just be like an explosion coming off the stage, that bass sound. And then Pontus and him would lock into something, and it was like, oh my God, that's so freaking cool. It's like it doesn't even need a guitar. You don't need anything. It's just the bass and the drums is like, that's, I really could say, I know Glenn would never do this, but I really could say that Glenn could go out with the bass, his voice, and the drums, and just do a concert like that. You know?
It's the sounds he gets off his bass, though. It's not just, he's not just your sheer rhythm section bass in and just standard tune with his mini Moog pedals and everything else that he uses. You can get some fantastic sounds of it. You've only got to listen to, well, any album he's been a part of for that. When I was at the show in Norwich on that tour that you were just mentioning, I've got a friend of mine and he always teases me because he's a guitar player, I'm a bass player. So anytime there's a bass solo on, he always teases me and pretends to look bored, like, oh yeah, bass player's out. And he's always winding me up. And then Glenn went to do a bass solo, and I'm obviously transfixed and just watching it, enjoying it. And I realised after a few seconds that he wasn't sort of jibing me or taking the mick. And I looked over, and he was just as transfixed as I was. And I sort of leant in and went, "What were you saying about bass solos?" And he, "Shut up, I'm watching this."
Yeah, that's cool.
So you mentioned Dio, and obviously recently was the 10th anniversary of his passing. What were your memories of Dio, both as a bandmate and as a friend?
Well, it was he really brought the best out of everybody that he worked with, and it really got me in a position where, I mean, if it wasn't for Ronnie, I wouldn't have been working with David in the first place. That's how David found me. We happened to be on tour, and he saw a video and he said, "That's the guy I want," what something like that. And Ronnie was just he was all in all the time. I mean, for like when we first started rehearsing the first time for our first tour together after the Killing the Dragon record, we'd go into rehearsal. I think we rehearsed for like 6 weeks. We started, and it wasn't about, like, we knew the songs, but it was about trying to up our game and be so well rehearsed that we could, that the confidence was just amazing. It's really true. The time, if you put the hours in, you put the time in, put the work in, when you get on stage, you can just forget about everything and let go and just let it happen. And Ronnie taught me that it's really, important to be really prepared for everything. And he'd be the first one to show up at rehearsal and the last one to leave. And it was awesome. Ronnie, that's all he cared about. He did love sports. He loved sport. And he would listen to sport radio in the morning at his house. I can picture him, when I'd go over to his place, he'd be sitting there with this little, here's Ronnie James Dio, the man on the Silver Mountain, the guy that kills the dragon and kills the king. And he's got this castle basically in Los Angeles. It's an English style castle.
Oh, wow.
And his neighbor was Tom Petty, and just
I didn't realize his neighbor was Tom Petty. That's insane.
Yeah, because he had Tom Petty on one side, and then he had a famous sports guy on the other side, and he was always like, man, Tom just needs to cut that bush down, man. It's like, or whatever. He would be like, I know, but I'd be like, Ronnie, but that's Tom Petty. I don't care. He needs to trim that bush, whatever. But I can still picture him in the morning when I'd go up there. He'd be sitting there, or he'd be walking around his kitchen, and he's got this, everything that a person ever needed in high tech. But he would be listening to sport on this little beat up old radio from like probably the 60s or something. And that was his thing, and he'd read the newspaper, and he would, it was good times, man. And then that was the thing at the end that I could tell something was really wrong when he would constantly complaining about his stomach hurting. And I was off tour with Whitesnake, and I had come back we were going to do a tour in 2009, and he was one rehearsal basically didn't show up, and I thought that's not right. That's not right. And eventually, we found out that he was sick and everything was off. But 10 years ago, I was actually with Glenn. We were in Italy, not working together, but we did jam together. But it was a guitar festival in Bologna that a friend put on, and he invited me and Glenn and George Lynch and Yngwie and a few other people. Derek Sherinian was there, the keyboard player. And Neil Murray was playing bass, and it was really cool. Anyway, so we after the gig, and so Glenn was the headliner, and Yngwie was kind of co-headliner too. I did a set, George did a set, some other people I can't remember, but then we all got up and jammed with Glenn, and we sang. And this was on the night before Ronnie passed away. So we got up there, and we knew Ronnie was sick. Everyone knew he was sick. And Glenn said, okay, all these guys are on stage, George and Yngwie and me and Derek and Neil Murray. And then he goes, let's dedicate this song, everybody, to Ronnie James Dio, Long Live Rock and Roll. And so we played Long Live Rock and Roll and dedicated it to Ronnie. And then we were all out to dinner. And afterwards, the promoter took us all to a really nice place. And we're sitting there having some wine and eating. And it was late. It was like 12 or 1 in the morning. Yeah. And Wendy called me and said, hey, you got to get, where are you? And I said, I'm in Italy. Why? What's up? And she said, you gotta get here because Ronnie's not doing well, and you got to come say goodbye. He's not going to make it. And I was like, oh my God, I thought Ronnie was doing pretty well because I thought there were still Heaven and Hell shows booked. Yeah. But anyway, to make my story shorter, I went back to the table and I told everybody that Wendy called, and she said to me, he's going to wait. He's going to be okay to wait because there's a few people like you and Jeff Pilson. I remember her saying that we're not in town and he wants to see you. And so she said, just when you land, I said, I'm coming home tomorrow. She goes, just when you land, just come straight to the hospital. And so when the plane landed, I was sitting next to Derek Sherinian and plane landed, and all of a sudden our phones just blew up, and he had passed. So it was sad, but his music lives on,
It does. And it's different scenario, but I lost my dad 10 years ago to cancer, and
sorry.
Thank you. And you get those phone calls. I was at university at the time. I wasn't living near home, and I kept saying, right, well, I'll postpone a year. I'll just come back, because we knew it wasn't going to be long and stuff. And there's my dad going, no, dude, you go do what you got to do. Okay. And you get that phone call, and time stops. But the only good thing is try and be positive. Like myself, I organise, as well as Stone Dead, I just part of that production team. I don't all run Stone Dead, but there's a smaller festival that I run called Just Push Play Festival in the UK, and I set it up in memory of my dad.
That's great, man.
It started off with like friends bands in a pub, and now we're in like a 800 seat capacity theatre with some sort of good rising bands. And all the money goes to the hospice that looked after him, and that's my way of keeping him going. Is like I said, it's about Ronnie's music keeps him alive, and this thing keeps my dad alive in some way. So yeah, I know what you're talking about, man.
Good on you. That's a good one.
Thanks, man.
I'm sure he's proud of you.
Thank you, mate. That really does mean a lot to me. He was the whole reason I started playing music and getting into it. He took me to see Aerosmith when I was 11 years old, and that was me hooked for life. It's I'm sorry he's passed, but he's watching now, so that's at least something to keep in mind. You know that. Yeah, thank you.
That's what I think about when I think about Ronnie. He probably, he's like, I can just see him right now going, damn, I'm certainly glad I'm not there with this COVID crap. What the? It's so funny, man. I mean, I love Wendy, and I'm super close to her, and she's one of the greatest people. But the little funny spats that she would have with Ronnie were hilarious. I can picture her going, okay, Ronnie, listen, after you're gone, your fans are going to still want to see you. I mean, you've got lifelong dedicated fans, and I'm thinking that probably we're going to do what do they call that thing that they do now?
I know about like the 3D imagery.
Yeah, well, it's called something. I forgot. That's how my mind is just blown right now. But yeah, it's like we're gonna do this thing where we kind of recreate you on stage, and I can just hear him going, that's crap, Wendy. What are you? Don't I'm not doing not. I didn't know. And eventually he would probably go, oh, okay. That's how it would always go. He'd be because Wendy could get him to do anything that he didn't want to do or whatever, like promotion or something. Like, I'm not doing it. Okay, I'll do it.
Proper
I'll do it.
Just then.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it was, but on that level, it was the manager artist thing.
Yeah.
So.
Now, of course, yourself and Dean Castronova are also working along with the Dead Daisies. You've also got Revolution Saints. Is there any plans with that project at the minute, or are you focused on Dead Daisies at the moment?
We're full on Dead Daisies. That's our main priority. That's our main gig. The Revolution Saints thing has been fun to do, but it's just a project. It's like a session that we do, for the fans that like that kind of music. It's really the only chance that people would get to hearing that kind of music out of us. And we've done 3. I reckon that's probably us,
Yeah.
You never know. Maybe something might come up in the future, but right now specifically Dead Daisies is our thing.
Fair play. So obviously, as we've spoken about, with everything going on in the world right now, it's had a huge impact on live music and the music industry in general. But what's the plans for Dead Daisies for the rest of the year and into 2021?
Well, we're keeping super busy. We've got a lot of things that we're working on at the moment to keep content going for social media and for Facebook stuff. As soon as possible, we obviously want to get together and start rehearsing. That's a priority. Hopefully, sometime later in the summer we can do that safely. And we're always writing. But I would say at the moment, everyone's doing their best to stay at home and do what we're supposed to do.
Definitely.
And we found a way to work online together where we can share ideas and make progress. It's pretty cool. It's like there's always a silver lining, and one of the silver linings is, aside from the smog level in Los Angeles is really, really low now, is that I had to force myself to learn some programs that could work in real time with David and with Glenn, and I would never have had the opportunity or the reason to do it if it wasn't for this. And now I've learned it, and it's really cool for using as a tool to create music and trade riffs and make demos from far away from each other. So.
And of course, you've been hosting your Pajama Jam videos as well.
Yeah, that's that's something that I do for fun for the fans that are interested in that. Not everybody probably is interested in that, but it's something goofy that I do. I agreed to do it, and they keep asking me, "Come on, you got to do more and more." But
I don't know. I quite enjoyed your daughter singing "Fortunate Son."
Thanks, man. Yeah. That's the thing. Is like, I've got a babysitter that has been helping a little bit because I'm trying to be focused and stuff, and my daughter will just burst in, and that's it for me. When that happens, I'm like, okay, whatever I was doing is not important now. I got to take care of her. Yeah, but for Dead Daisies, we're gonna probably release a song or maybe two. But we'll see when the album release is going to end up being, because we don't want to release it and not be able to go on tour and promote it.
No, cool.
So worst case scenario, I would hope that the latest would be sometime next year we would start to do some concerts, start a tour. So we'll release a couple songs, keep the interest going for the album, and it'll be out as soon as it's possible. And I really think people will enjoy it, and we really appreciate your support. And actually, I had a guy that was a really cool friend of mine from Mexico that I met from John Corabi, and he wrote me about Unspoken. He goes, Doug, I just wanted to tell you I love this song so much. He goes, I didn't want to like it, I didn't want to, but I just love it, And I was like, that's cool. That's really nice that you said that. And there's people that you just got to give them time and let them hear it, and then make up their own mind, what they think. But I think the majority of people, especially fans of guys like Glenn and the band Dead Daisies, are going to mostly love it. It's a new sound that everyone's going to be like, wow, that's different.
It is different. The two songs, like it was always going to be, when you replace, when a new singer comes into the fold, and a new bass player in the case, but Glenn, he's obviously done both. But you bring any new musician to the fold, it's going to change the sound. But it is, right. Although you can't mistake Glenn's voice for anyone else's, but it was also an unmistakably a Dead Daisies tune as soon as I heard it, and I'm really, really excited to hear the rest of the album, Doug. And I'm even more excited to eventually see you guys with Glenn out front on the UK, whenever that may be.
Absolutely. Well, I really appreciate your support and everything. It means a lot, Lee. Thank you, bro.
Anytime. This has been an absolute pleasure to talk to you, man. And like I say, I can't wait to see you on the road. Thanks for your time.
You got it. And thanks to you and your listeners. God bless you. God bless your dad. And thanks again for all you're doing. And everybody keep supporting the rock show.
Cheers, Doug. Appreciate it. Thanks, man.
Cheers.
Cheers.